What is going on, YouTube people? New York Cards and Comics here. Today, something a little different. We are going to watch together / react to this Advancements in Engineering the Future video by Bloomberg TV, I believe. I will link to the original in the comment section down below. But they got behind the scenes access to PSA. And it's about a 6-minute clip. The show's a half an hour long, but the PSA portion is about 6 minutes. And it's mostly interviews. Most of the stuff that they're talking about is things that probably viewers of this channel are well aware of. There is an interesting comment about AI, but the cool part is there is a lot of B-roll. And they're quick little clips, but it gives us what we've really never seen before, at least publicly, and that is a behind the scenes look at the PSA offices in California. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play on this, and then I'll kind of randomly pause it when I want to pop in and comment on something. But let's go ahead and dive into this.
Determination are working together to foster innovation.
Collectibles began in the 19th century when cigarette and candy companies started including baseball cards with products to drive sales. As the industry grew, so did the need for a reliable and trustworthy way to authenticate and grade collectibles.
In the early 1900s, tobacco companies and candy manufacturers used trading cards as a way to sell additional versions of their products. And that started the kind of collecting craze with kids that were actually acquiring these items, and that was the beginning of it. And it really took off in 1952 when Topps started making full-size cards with bubble gum.
The collectibles industry has definitely changed in some major ways, but I think the core elements of collecting, especially the nostalgia around it, has really stayed the same over all these years. However, one of the big things we've seen is a rise really of the digital elements around collecting, making it easier than ever for people to learn about collectibles, to buy them, to sell them, to show them off to their friends.
The trading card and collectibles industry has experienced a resurgence in recent years, with millions either discovering the hobby or reigniting their interest. However, until recently, the industry lacked significant technological investment.
We're seeing, some would say, a resurgence in the collectible and trading card space where people who were part of Generation X or who were millennials loved collecting back then, but maybe you couldn't buy all those expensive cards you really wanted, or you couldn't complete a set you were really going after. And then those generations are also having their own kids, and then they're getting engaged in these hobbies and these collectibles too. And so it's something that can be shared between the parent and the kid, kind of this love and passion for those collectibles.
It's taken a while for the collectibles industry to catch up with technology. This is because the foundation of the collectibles industry is expertise. A lot of this involves specialists who spent decades.
All right, let's pause it here for a quick second. So it looks like, I'm assuming, because the lights are off and they have the little spotlight, that this is a grader station. So it looks like they have the little electronic microscope. I think that's the same one. I don't know if it's the exact same one I have, but it looks very similar back there. Black mat, felt mat. Looks like he's got a little laptop there. Getting ready to check in an order. Dark room with just a single light above them. So I don't know if this is the first time we've ever seen a PSA grading room on camera, but I can't recall seeing one prior to this. And nothing too shocking here, but once again, this is just something we don't typically get a look at very often. Let's go ahead and let it run from here.
All of this involves specialists who spent decades learning how to authenticate and grade collectibles. For a long time, they were able to keep up with the demand. This was until the boom in the volume of items that came in. So that's where technology took over.
Now, a passion and dedication for accuracy and trust are bringing needed innovation, transparency, and value to hobbyists.
PSA was the first trading card authentication and grading company.
So just to back it up a quick second here, we're back at this grading desk and we can see them checking centering old school style with a little measurement tool there. And then you could see it in the clip right after this that they're using a loop on it to double check. Looks like corners and surface, I'm sure. I think, and they're going to talk about it in a minute. I wonder how much they're also using tech assist on centering for especially cards like this, where it's very clear cut. And they do talk about, I think that might be the next segment that they chat about. So let's go ahead and run it.
Bringing needed innovation, transparency, and value to hobbyists.
PSA was the first trading card authentication and grading company. We have graded more than 90 million collectibles, and I think over the years we've shown that we've got the highest standards in consistency and accuracy in our grading.
We actually created custom AI models to help with card identification, detection of counterfeits, and multi-point quality assurance checks throughout the entire authentication and grading process. So our technology doesn't actually replace the graders. What it does is it helps them to move faster, to highlight through AI a lot of the anomalies that they may miss because they're looking at a large volume of items. So we will highlight using things like heat maps. And for collectors, we've essentially created an AI expert in your pocket.
As a leading provider of authentication,
All right, so that was interesting. We heard them talk about kind of what they're using for AI. I actually want to back this up for a second because it looks like we got, there's a look at the full kit and caboodle grading room. But so that was intriguing. We've kind of heard Nat in other interviews and Ryan kind of speak about this over the years, that I get the vibe anyways that AI is not, in their view, the AI is not completely ready to replace the human, but they are using it to kind of speed things along quite a bit with card identification and a handful of other things. So it's more like a teammate than actually doing the grading itself, like you see with Tag or something like that. And I have to imagine that the AI stuff is still limited on what it, I wonder if it's limited on what it can detect for fakes. And I don't know this for sure. This is 100% me speculating, but I wonder how much of that is the reason why Tag is hamstrung by the date limitation. Like, they do not grade cards prior to the early 90s. I forget the exact date off the top, or the exact year off the top of my head. I think it might be like 92 or 93 or something. But they don't grade older stuff. Like most of the 80, or pretty much all the 80s and older, Tag will not grade. And Tag is machine learning. It's not AI. They'll say it's not AI. It's machine learning. But theirs is not open to the wind. And I wonder if it's the limitations of potentially catching fraudulent cards on that old, just kind of plain old card stock that a ton of cards were made out of. Like I said, I don't know that for sure. That's just me speculating on that. So it feels like, I mean, PSA has literally unlimited money. You would think if they could figure out the AI thing to grade a card, that they would have done it by now. And maybe it's just a slow build up as they teach it, because they're constantly scanning all these cards in. I have no idea. But they've been pretty adamant over the years that they still want a human very much involved in the process. And I have to assume that they have a good reason behind that. I don't know. I'm sure the skeptics in the tinfoil hat brigade will say, no, yeah, of course they want a human involved because they don't want the transparency, because they want people to crack and resubmit and play pop control games and all the conspiracy theory stuff that we see out there. So side note here, once again, interesting look at a PSA grading room here with the different workstations. Looks like you can see orders piled up here. And then, they have their little lights and laptops and stuff with it spitting them information. So once again, just intriguing to kind of see this look behind the scenes of the PSA office.
Highlight using things like heat maps. And for collectors, we've essentially created an AI expert in your pocket.
As a leading provider of authentication, grading, and collection management services, the company provides best-in-class products and services that allow hobbyists to grade, authenticate, research, vault, and sell their trading cards and memorabilia with ease.
Our mobile app acts as a collector's personal assistant, allowing them to scan the collectible and see the population reports, the rarity and potential value of every item. It's not just about buying and selling. It's about helping collectors to make informed decisions so that they can enjoy the hobby with confidence.
In 2020 and 2021, we experienced a massive surge in interest in card collecting as an industry, and I think PSA invested a ton, both in our people, our facilities, and our technology in order to scale to meet that increased demand from customers in the US and worldwide.
Leveraging emerging technologies to deliver a unified, end-to-end experience across its brands, the digital ecosystem brings the best in grading and vaulting services to millions of collectors worldwide.
After authentication and grading, collectors can send their items to a secure vault for storage. So imagine an Ocean's 11 style vault with multiple layers of physical and digital security. That's actually what we built. And so the best part is that once it's in the vault, ownership can transfer digitally without the need for the collector to ever physically deal with the item again. So we had to create a digital manifestation of it that allowed people to see all of their items and track the value and look at all of it.
An online record of all PSA certified trading cards, tickets, packs, coins, and pins provides an encyclopedia of information to help enthusiasts track and grow collections.
Every item that we authenticate gets a unique identifier associated with it. And as a result, you can see the public record online, complete with high-resolution images, a population report, and more information about that collectible. A population report actually tells you the distribution of how many items we've seen and at what grades we've seen them at. This gives you an idea of the rarity of the item. What this provides for our customers is transparency.
The process of card grading can be a little bit of a black box at times, and so we're taking strides to making it more accessible and bringing people behind the scenes so that they can actually see what is going into the grade that they see on their card.
The current state of card collecting continues to merge with the tech revolution, bridging together people and technology while empowering enthusiasts with the innovative solutions needed to help their collections thrive.
There's this thing out there about every 25 years something becomes collectible, so we're seeing other categories pop up. I think video games is an interesting one. Game-used memorabilia, photo-matched memorabilia, I think is another one that's also super interesting for the sports fan.
Innovations in technology will have a huge impact on the future of the collecting space. We're in a bit of a digital transformation right now in a previously somewhat antiquated hobby where people have a higher bar now for what they would expect from a product or service. As items are increasing in value, people out there are faking them and counterfeiting them, and we can really police this space and make sure that your collectible is authentic and genuine. So being more online and digital first, I think, is what really will take the hobby to the next level and move it forward.
All right, so information-wise, nothing earth-shattering there. Interesting comment on the AI assist stuff by their tech lead. To me, the interesting part was getting a few glimpses behind the scenes, because that is just not something that we get to see very often with the grader stations and whatever some of those crazy machines were that were spinning things around and flipping things and doing all sorts of nonsense with them in the back there. I am sure from end to end that their offices are probably an insane operation, especially the setup in California. So, yeah, curious for your thoughts and comments down below. Like I said, not a ton of new information in that one, but some interesting little sneak peeks behind the curtain, if you will, at the old PSA offices. Curious what you all thought about this. As always, we will catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.